Well, welcome to our third section, our third prerequisite section in pre-calculus. This section deals with linear equations and inequalities, and we will be solving lots of equations and inequalities in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first slide has some linear equations for us in one variable. And we're only dealing with linear equations because the exponent there on all of these will be 1. We're not going to have any quadratics or anything else. So our directions just tell us to go ahead and solve. We don't have to graph any solutions, just solve these equations. So in letter A, we have several things that are multiplied in parentheses, so we need to use the distributive property to simplify. When we do that, we get this. Then in order to solve, we need to combine our like terms, so we get this. Negative 18b minus 9 is equal to b minus 17. Now we need to combine our like terms, and what I did was I went ahead and subtracted b from both sides and then added 9. And then lastly, dividing by negative 19, we get b equals 8/19. Over on the right hand side, we have some fractions that we need to get rid of. To do that, we need to multiply by the least common denominator. So if we multiply the entire equation by the least common denominator, which is 12, we will get rid of our fractions, and then we can use our distributive property. So when we multiply this first fraction by 12, 4 goes into 12 3 times, so we can actually reduce and get 3 times the numerator. The second fraction, 6 goes into 12 twice, and then we multiply 2 times that numerator. And on the right hand side, there is no fraction to reduce, so we just multiply by 12. Now using our distributive property, we get this. Combining our like terms, we have x minus 7 equals 12, and solving, we get x equals 19. Moving over to the right-hand side, letter C. Our least common denominator between 15 and 25 is 75, so we want to multiply the entire equation, every single term, by 75. And when we do that, 15 goes into 75 5 times, leaving us 5 times x minus 5 for the numerator. 4 only has a denominator of 1, actually, so nothing gets simplified. We just multiply 4 times 75, which is 300. And then 25 goes into 75 3 times, leaving us 3 times the numerator. Again, using the distributive property, combining like terms, and then solving for x, we get x equals 272. Feel free to pause the video or slow it down anytime that you feel I'm going too fast. Linear inequalities. These are pretty much the same as solving equations. The only difference is instead of an equal sign, you have an inequality. The only thing to watch out for is if you multiply or divide by a -1, that will flip your inequality, and you don't have to worry about that when you're solving equations. So just be careful of that. We will be graphing our solutions on a number line and writing our answers in interval notation. So here we go. Our least common denominator for letter A is 10, so we're going to multiply the entire equation by 10. When we do that, we get this. Using our distributive property, we get this. And then combining our like terms and solving, we get y is less than 7/6. If I can get it to appear here, there we go. And so interval notation, anything from negative infinity to 7/6, it does not include 7/6. And then we need to go ahead and graph our solution. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with you here. And let's see what we get here. So we're going to have anything less than 7/6 that's going to go to the left. It does not include 7/6. So we need to make sure that we write that that is an open dot right there, and we should label that as 7/6. Over on the right hand side, our least common denominator between 2 and 4 is 8, so we want to multiply that entire equation by 8. When we do that, our first fraction, that 1/4, will cancel with the 8 and we'll be left with a 2. The x gets multiplied by the 8, so we have minus 8x, and then on the right hand side, the 2 will cancel with the 8, we'll be left with a 4. And when we multiply the 4 times the 5, that's where that 20 comes from. Then using our distributive property and combining like terms and solving for x, we get 4 and 6/7. So we have x is greater than or equal to 4 and 6/7. In interval notation, it looks like this. So we're going to have, again, a graph going to the right this time. And anything that is We've got this one in black for you, I guess. Anything that is greater than or equal to 4 6/7 is a solution. So we want to label that as 4 6/7. And this time we do want this to be a solid dot. Okay. Our last slide here says, solve the double inequality and graph the solution set. Well, on this inequality, we could actually cover one side and solve it, and then cover the other side and solve it, and bring those two back together. Or you could solve it simultaneously. It's a lot quicker just to solve it simultaneously. And your first step, if you were to cover one inequality up, your first step in solving would be to subtract 4. So that's what we're going to do on all three parts of this. We'll subtract 4 on the left, the middle, and the right. And then we're going to write what's left. And now if we want to solve for x, we need to divide by 3. And doing that to all three sides, we end up with a solution set that looks like this. And this says x is greater than or equal to -2 and less than 1/3. Graphing on our number line, we have -2 and then positive 1/3. Closed dot on -2, open dot on 1/3. And that'll do it for this lesson. We'll see you next time.